you're doing your dialogue entirely wrong. And don't feel bad because I absolutely did the same thing. If this is your first time watching my channel, I'm Shirley Jump. I'm a New York Times, USA Today, Wall Street Journal bestselling author. I've published 87 books in 24 countries, but I didn't start out that way. I wrote 10 books that got rejected everywhere before I finally sold a book. I had a lot to learn, and that's why I started this channel, to teach you guys what I wish I knew then. And one of those things was dialogue. When I go back and reread the dialogue in the first 5 or 6 books that I wrote, that all got rejected, by the way, I really want to cringe because it was so bad. It's a pretty common mistake, something I see a lot in the Fix My Story series and in the writers that I work with. But don't feel bad. A lot of us get it wrong because you're trying too hard to make it do too much on the page when it really needs to do subtler things. And don't worry, I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's talk dialogue and how to actually make dialogue that works and doesn't make the reader roll their eyes or close the book. The first thing that your dialogue really needs to do is create layers. What do I mean by that? That it needs to do a whole lot of things at one time. And it means that you don't want it to be too obvious and too on the nose, because people don't talk like that. You want to start layering in the mysteries that are to come in the book, or the things that are unresolved, or the things that the character is hiding. Okay, great, you say. How do I actually do that? Because that was my biggest problem with the writing advice that I would read and see, is they would tell me what I was doing wrong, but not how to actually fix it. Chuck Wendig is an excellent horror writer. I've loved pretty much everything of his that I have read. Staircase in the Woods was also really good. It involves a group of friends that go back to investigate something that they had seen way back many years ago. So you know that there are layers here, and there are things that have happened in the meantime that nobody's talking about. Just take this conversation from chapter 3. The covenant, Owen. Nick invoked the covenant. We don't know what the covenant is, but that's a little layer right there. There's something there that is intriguing the reader. So what? The covenant's been broken since, and Owen's voice trails off. He couldn't finish that sentence. They'd all broken it in their own ways. Her especially, he thought, but dared not say. So again, another layer. What happened? Who broke it? How did they break it? Lore, he says. And she cuts him off. Shut up. You're going. We're all going. He sighed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A pause. And even that pause, that's dialogue. Not saying anything is still part of dialogue. This is like less than 100 words. It's not a lot of text, but it has a lot of layers in there. Chuck Wendig did that by not telling you everything from the very beginning. He leaves some things unsaid. And you know what? That's real life. We don't spell everything out. I talk about that a lot on this channel. We don't spell every little detail out. The details he leaves out are intriguing. It also does the second thing I recommend. Dialogue should foreshadow. That means giving the reader a hint of what's to come without being so obvious about it. The thing that a lot of people get wrong is they're like, okay, I've got to tell you that this is something that's going to happen because you really need to know it, because they feel like the reader won't get it. Readers are a lot smarter than you give them credit for. John Boyne's All the Broken Places, which was a really heartbreaking book, honestly, to read. He's the author that wrote The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie or read that book. Absolutely heartbreaking. All the Broken Places is in that same vein. Gretel meets Henry, her 9-year-old neighbor, in the backyard, and he's got a book and she's got a book, and he asks her what she's reading. She tells him it's a biography of Marie Antoinette, and he asks, what happened to her? She had her head cut off, I said. Henry's eyes opened wide and his mouth made the shape of an O. I hoped I hadn't scared him. Why? He asked breathlessly. The people rose up, I explained. The citizens, I mean. They felt that the king and queen were not treating them very well, so they staged a revolution. How is that foreshadowing? How does that have anything to do with what's going on in this book? Gretel is the daughter of a Nazi commander during World War II. We already know that there's this horrific thing in her past that she's not thinking about yet. So you can have a tiny bit of foreshadowing here in the Marie Antoinette thing. The third thing your dialogue needs to do is show the character. It should sound like the character. It should come across as the character. We should be able to see what kind of person they are. Gretel has a moment towards the end of the book when she finally begins to stand up to a lot of the stuff she's been hiding from and ignoring, meaning the truth that she didn't want to face for so long because it would mean confronting her own part in it. She goes down to the apartment where Madeline, Henry's mom, lives, and she sees that Henry and Madeline are all bruised up. Madeline said her son was sleepwalking. Can you believe it? And Gretel says, not for a moment. Madeline, who is not ready to face the truth about what's going on in her life, doesn't answer Gretel. Instead, she says, go back to your room, Henry. You can see how their dialogue is one avoiding and hiding and one pushing and confronting. It is showing the growth in Gretel as a character and also showing that Gretel, even though she's 91, is much stronger and kind of done with this BS about life. Showing the characters is also in the way that they speak. In The Staircase in the Woods, there's a lot of interaction between the friends. They sit down for a break and they take out some granola bars, and Lore's is peanut butter, quinoa, and collagen. This is a little moment of levity in this very dark book. At that, Owen couldn't help but laugh a little. God, Lore, why do you have those cursed protein bars? Trying to like mini-max hack my health. So they have this moment of levity, which is a moment of vulnerability. And then you see Lore immediately take that vulnerability back. I can't do this now, but I just wanted you to know you were right. This is my fault and I should have been better. I will be better. I'll get us out of this. You're not our leader, Lore. It's all right, Owen said. Her mouth formed a hard line. Her words were firm when she responded with, I said I have to do better, and I will. She took the wrapper trash back from him and looked around for a trash can. Shrugging, she just stuffed it back into her pocket. So we've taken the granola bar and it has sort of rounded out this scene. The fourth thing you want your dialogue to do is echo. You can do that with actions and you can also do it with dialogue. In Blood Trail by C.J. Box, which was something I talked about in the video I was just talking about, Sheridan, Joe's daughter, is trying to understand why there is a killer who is killing hunters. She reached for a banana from a bowl of fruit on the table and began to peel it. In order to eat this, I need to literally pull the skin off. That's pretty gross if you think of it that way. And in order to get milk, some guy has to yank on the private parts of a poor old cow. I mean, yuck. She's likening what's going on to making these connections in real life. And her dad replies, people can't just say how much they love animals and turn their heads away and not have some kind of responsibility. He starts talking about population control and how that's our responsibility as humans. My job as a game warden is to make that last choice, hunting, as efficient, biologically responsible, and sporting as possible. So we've shown what the characters are like. We've echoed what is happening in the plot because there is a hunter hunting the hunters. And we've also brought some ethical questions to the forefront just in this little teeny tiny conversation in the middle of CJ Box's Blood Trail. I love how you can do that with just a little bit of dialogue. Final thing your dialogue needs to do is move the plot forward. That's something I talk about a lot on the channel. Every word on the page needs to be moving the plot forward. Otherwise, it's just keeping the reader stagnant. You want everything to have something to do with what's coming, what's happened, or what you're trying to set up. And this scene with this dialogue really is indicative of the entire plot for All the Broken Places. It is Gretel's mother speaking to her about dating this guy. She asks her about how much her mother has told him about the truth about who they are, because when they left Germany, they started lying about who they were because they didn't want anybody to know that they were Nazis. And should you marry, Gretel said, are we to maintain this fiction for the rest of our lives? And that fiction is a huge part of the plot. She turned away. It's no longer a fiction, Gretel. Tell a story often enough and it becomes the truth. That's a huge theme throughout this whole book. I have to say that All the Broken Places was a really well done novel because the dialogue has multiple layers to it. And it was also a deep, dark subject that not everybody wants to deal with or talk about. But I really enjoyed it. If you want a book that's a little bit meatier than some of the other ones I've been talking about on the channel, definitely recommend this one. What you mainly want your dialogue to do is leave the reader asking questions and wanting to know more. The more you kind of leave for the reader to fill in the blanks, the more the reader is going to want to know what's in those blanks. Well-written dialogue does a lot of different things. Don't worry about mastering all of it at once. I find that you learn skills as you're able to implement them into your book, and you will never, ever get it all perfect. I still struggle with every book that I write. Doesn't matter how many you've done. You still struggle to remember all the millions of little things that go into creating a really great piece of fiction. So don't put that pressure on yourself to say, okay, Shirley said do these 5 things, and I've got to do all these 5 things. No. Just write from your gut. Write from the position of having read a lot and really getting that innate sense of what makes a good story, and write the story that you're meant to write, using some of these skills as a way to bring out the best in the story that you have. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. Now tell me what you're struggling with your dialogue. Is it telling way too much? guilty right here in the very beginning of your book? Or is it not coming to life? Or is it just feeling flat and forced? Do the characters not have their own unique voices? What are you struggling with? And how can I help you make that better? Oh, and if you really like the advice that I have here, please comment, like, subscribe, and hype. I appreciate it when you guys do that because it really gets this video in front of other writers that need the advice. And I want to save everybody all the time and effort that I had to spend to try to learn how to write a good book. In the meantime, if you want more about dialogue, check out this video right here, or pick up the Writing Compelling Fiction workbook or book. Both of them are available on Amazon. And I will see you on the other side of the page.